Good morning. Welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. So it is an extremely cool morning. I don't know what the temperature is. I think our low might have been in the upper 40s. I've got to check. It may have been mid 50s, but there's a definite chill in the air that I feel like is not normal for August. And this is also not normal for August. This is an American persimmon. My husband found this on the ground at one of our friends' houses, and it appears to be plenty ripe. Yeah, there's no astringent quality. I love persimmons, but it's a tad concerning to me that this kind of thing is going on in August. We also have a lot of the fall flowers blooming. So is this happening near you? I don't understand what's going on. Good morning, Buster. Oh, watch out for the kitty. We will start the garden tour in the pumpkin patch today and on the greenhouse side of the homestead. We haven't gotten any rain to speak of really in the last couple of weeks. So I brought out the sprinklers to try to water the pumpkin patch, but I'm having sprinkler issues. The sprinklers are supposed to go back and forth and it's like they're getting stuck on one side and not sweeping, but I'll figure that out. We harvested a pumpkin last week and I failed to mention, I had a lot of questions. These are Dutch fork pie pumpkins. They are starting to turn. Can you see that orange one in there? And that's a good thing. Right now it's a little bit hard to see, I think because the sun is just now coming up, but we do have quite a bit of dead area kind of in the back where the pumpkins started, and the disease is kind of starting to creep this way, but this is kind of part of the process. These pumpkin vines will eventually die back and they're gonna leave these lovely orange globes behind. They're more tan on this variety. But as I was messing around with the sprinklers the last couple of days, I noticed that my volunteer zucchini actually goes much further than I thought it did. There are at least 5 on this arm, and then there's another arm of the zucchini over here. I thought it was just one side, but this plant is pretty big. I'm really surprised that this zucchini has done so well, because when I try to plant something like zucchini, I have to fight really hard to get any kind of harvest because of these guys. See that squash bug? These plants seem to be relatively resistant, which is really good. Squash can provide a lot of food, a lot of easy food, and so if you have the ability to grow it and you really like it, it's a good thing to plant. It's just that bugs can make it a problem. It's cool enough this morning where I can turn off the fans in the greenhouse so you can hear what I'm saying. The greenhouse is really on quite the glorious rebound. This is making me so happy. I don't know if the weather is contributing or what. Look at this sunflower. This pink ox heart tomato was the most prolific tomato early on in the season, but it was also the hardest hit with all the bugs and disease that we had. But there's a lot of foliage. Look at that. Brand new fruits, even at the tippy top. Now I do see one with a little bit of blossom end rot, but it's not widespread for whatever reason. The blossom end rot has been kind of spotty in the greenhouse, so we may need calcium, we may not. I suspect that it's watering issues as I'm trying to figure out how to water in the greenhouse with these raised beds. If you're new to the channel, the raised beds in here are new this year. Ooh. Oh, that was a hummingbird. I hope I caught that on camera. Our volunteer birdhouse gourd likely has been getting pollinated by hummingbirds. How sweet is that? Look, we are getting some fruit. This is really funny. There's actually a lot of it. These are the first ones I noticed. They're just growing up here on the table. Oh, the wonderful things you can hear when the fans are not on. Good handful of mystery tomatoes. Couple of Dr. Witchies. We've been getting these the most this year. They seem to be the most resistant to our issues that we've had. So far we have not seen tomato hornworms, but I have seen plenty of the thing that just fell. These guys, these army worms. I've talked about them the last couple of tours and I haven't done anything to deal with them, partially because I'm a little bit worried that it's been all of my interventions that I've tried to have for things like aphids and whiteflies that caused all those like cascade of problems with my tomato plants earlier in the year. So I'm just kind of picking them off as I see them and dealing with them that way. And so far it's working out better than what I was doing previously, which was just spraying stuff. It was organic stuff, but still. We're finally seeing what looks to be a good amount of cherry tomatoes on these plants. These are kind of wild. Late fruit is better than no fruit. We've even got some ripening way up here. This is a super sweet 100. These are very good tomatoes. Very likely I need to come through and do a basil harvest and make some more pesto. This is a lettuce leaf basil and it was a little bit more vigorous earlier in the year. Maybe it could use some feeding, but it's still producing quite well. By far, one of the best producers in the greenhouse has been this single eggplant. It's been producing several every single week. I've been not harvesting them until the garden tours. We've got a few this week. I'll leave some of these smaller ones on to get a little bit bigger. These are what I think is an Asian eggplant. It came in a seed swap, so it just said long purple eggplant, which is very accurate. I wanted to show you too the progression of growth on these Black Beauty eggplants. These took a while to actually fruit this year. Beautiful, dark little orbs. This plant was actually the first to flower this year, but it was the last to start setting fruit. But it's there. I'm gonna leave it. I've noticed a few weird spots on my peppers. I don't love that. It looks kind of like a bacterial thing going on. This here is the Pippin's Golden Honey. These are really nice peppers. And you know that they're ripe when they get to this golden color here. They start out purple, which is funny because a lot of peppers start out green and then ripen to something like this, but not these guys. They like to be different. Any red peppers I'm going to collect. I need to process more this week. I had a pretty sad red roasting pepper fail a couple of weeks ago. I sliced them open and went to roast them in the oven like I've seen people do, and I left them in there a little long and they essentially roasted down to nothing. But I did get a really great tip that I wanted to pass along here, that if you roast them whole, they're a lot less likely to break down like that, and you can just take the seeds out after they're done roasting. So I'm going to do that. These yellow pole beans that I put along the trellis a couple weeks ago are already reaching for the trellis, which I'm really excited to see. I'm just gonna bend that one under and it will grow upwards. We have had a couple losses, likely due to birds, but a lot of these are big enough to where the birds aren't really gonna bother them. So we'll get some beans. This was funny to see too. These are peas that I have along the trellis here. You can see that the birds have really gotten to some of these, mostly here where I don't have any ground cherries behind. But over here where there's ground cherries, the peas are fine. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. Likely the birds come in and light on the fencing that I have on the wall there, and they can see this and they just can beeline right for it and then get out real fast. As far as the birds go, those are probably one of the main things that I have that comes and ruins the garden. But my friends who have a greenhouse, they are Amish, they have like almost like a beach ball. It's like a neon looking beach ball with these fake eyes on it that they hang on either side of their greenhouse, and that's what they use to deter birds. I think I would like to get a couple, because very often I am starting seeds for things inside that really could be started outside, just to give my seedlings a leg up. And maybe with the beach ball I can sow things directly more reliably. I did harvest the peaches off of the peach tree this past week. I'll put a clip in here of what they looked like and what I did with them. These bonfire peach trees, this is their first year. Really, I shouldn't have allowed them to fruit. So the 5 peaches that we got is a small harvest, and these trees are not going to get super big, but it's still going to be nice to have them here. And our harvest in the future will be bigger. I've got this bed down here that has my favorite tomato in it. And we haven't seen any of my favorite tomato all season long, except for there's a green one down there. It is very small. It's got some growing to do, but it's there. This is a Belgian giant. There's more trusses way up high. So maybe we'll get to see some Belgian giant out of the greenhouse. We do have Belgian giant volunteering elsewhere on the homestead, and we'll make our way down there, just not right now. Right now we need to check out these peppers, which have started to really produce. I'm very happy. I wasn't sure that this bed was really going to do anything, but we've got some Shishitos here. A lot of different varieties of things that I'm growing this year are new to me, but I have grown peppers in the past, just never Shishitos. And I've heard that these are better kind of roasted or blistered, charred, but I want to taste one just raw like this. I've never had them before. Tastes like a green pepper, so I need to cook it. Like there's nothing fabulous about this as it is right now. So I should probably do it justice and actually cook some up, but I need to let them mature a little more. Some of the peppers are still pretty small. Also, it's a spicy pepper. I don't like spicy peppers. It's not that bad, okay? I can handle a jalapeno and stuff. I just probably wouldn't willingly bite into one. It's a little spicy, if you didn't know. Hello, editing Heather here. So while I was watching myself and laughing at myself kind of choke on that pepper, I decided to do a little bit of a Google to figure out, are Shishitos supposed to be spicy? So I was given this seed from a friend. She got it from Baker Creek, and it may have been in kind of like the Peppergate situation. I'm not really sure, but I was seeing a couple different figures, but it looks like anywhere between 1 in 10 to 1 in 20 Shishito peppers is hot. And I don't understand how that happens. So if you were not aware that some Shishitos can be hot, most of them are not. I happen to pick one hot one. Go figure. Now you know. I've got a pretty wild and unkempt area of my garden space back here. We call this the lane. It's still producing even though I have kind of stopped mowing back here. I wanted to show you something though. Oops, it just fell off. So it must have been ripe. We've got our first ripe armpit melon. Now this is not as bright and vibrant as I'm used to seeing. This plant is quite stressed. It's got some disease. We haven't had rain in a while. I have been giving it hose water, but there's nothing quite like rain. It smells sweeter than I think it should be. Okay. You know why? Because this melon is not quite the armpit that I want. And okay, so back up. The story of this melon goes, I grew 2 melons next to each other a few years ago, the Charente melon and the Kajari melon. I saved seed from the Kajari melon and planted it the next year and got a melon that was not quite a Kajari. Kajaris are orange and green striped like this melon is, just a lot more vibrant when they're ready. And they also have a green flesh on the inside, a lot like this. They're very sweet, they're very good. But this melon was fuzzy on the outside. It had the Kajari look, a little bit muted. It looked like it was sun faded. And the inside was orange. But most distinctly, it smells like someone's armpit, but they have tried to hide their BO with like a melon scented deodorant. It smells exactly like that. If you can imagine it, that is what it smells like. Very musky, quite delicious. Actually has like an umami aftertaste, a little bit like a tomato. It is the most wild thing ever, and I love it. And I've been trying to stabilize the seed. It takes about 7 generations. This is the 3rd generation of the plant, and it doesn't look like we got what I had hoped for out of this particular plant. Now this, I think it ripened this melon a little bit immature, likely out of stress, but it doesn't smell right. It smells like a Kajari. It looks like a Kajari. It's not as fuzzy as the armpit. So I think that the genes, because they're not stable, in this particular seed really leaned more in towards Kajari and less like a balance of the cross. So I still have some seed that I planted last year and did get armpits out of. So I've got to plant that again this coming year and try to keep stabilizing it. It would be so sad to lose that. Yeah, but this isn't it. This is not the armpit. Now there are 2 plants here planted with 2 different seeds. So there's a chance that this seed could be more armpity. This looks correct. Like it's fuzzy on the outside and it's a little bit like the white is kind of like a white snow and not really like crisp lines. This looks correct as is. We're just gonna have to wait. We just tasted our wannabe armpit melon.
Yes.
What does it taste like?
Mostly honeydew.
Yeah.
It's very similar to honeydew. It's softer, but I don't know if that's just because most of the honeydew I've ever had has been like from a grocery store and probably not properly ripened.
Yeah, that's a very ripe melon. It fell off of the plant this morning. It's a good melon. It's not the armpit melon, and I did have my armpit melons planted closely to honeydew last year, so I've learned that I need to make sure that the genes that I'm trying to stabilize are spread probably about 50 feet away from other melon varieties. There is a volunteer cucumber back here that I've essentially stopped picking from. It produced okay for a little while and then it just kind of stopped. I'm not really sad about it. It was not my favorite texture. But we do have several of these chicken and dumplings cowpeas that I'm going to harvest today. Did you hear that little crunch? So these are starting to dry out. You can really harvest these for their peas on the inside. As soon as they turn, they're just gonna be more juicy if you harvest them a little earlier. So it really just kind of depends what you want out of it. So when you harvest them drier, ideally even drier than this, you can use the peas on the inside for seed for next year, or you can store them. I'm trying not to drop any, it'll be fine, I'll just be a volunteer. But see, these are nice and dry, they're beautiful. This variety, chicken and dumplings, is also known as ham and gravy. And I got the seeds from So True Seeds. It took me forever to find these particular seeds. For these and for the Dutch fork pie pumpkins, I got the seeds at the same place. And that's because these are like essentially local heirlooms to that area in South Carolina. That is what they look like when they're relatively dry. These probably could stand to sit out a little bit and dry some more. But then this pod, it's yellow, and the peas on the inside are nice and plump, but it's not quite dry. You can see that the peas are much more plump, and so if we wanted to cook these right away, we could. The other peas, the drier ones, we would have to soak for a little while to let them plump up before we cooked them, but these guys we could cook right away if we wanted. And with these too, you can also just set these out on a tray in like a single layer and they'll dry within a couple of days, I guess, depending on the humidity in the area you've got them. See the size difference between the plump ones and the dry ones? It's kind of incredible. It's like they triple in size when they're hydrated. So no matter if they are dry or a little bit plump, I am harvesting all of the pea pods that are ripe today, instead of just leaving them to dry, because I'm noticing something that I don't love, and that is rodent damage. So the ones that are closer to the bottom have been ravaged by rodents. They've opened it up and just eaten every single little pea out of the pod. And the fact that I haven't mowed back here is probably part of the problem, but I think that even if I mowed the lane, they know this is here now, and they'll come in from wherever I haven't mowed, because we don't keep everything super short on our 9.5 acres. I did not have problems with rodents getting to my black-eyed peas that I grew in the greenhouse last year, but we've got the problem this year. So I'm really glad that I trellised them, because if I hadn't, most of the peas would be close to the ground and we may not get much of a harvest at all. As it is, the harvest has been pretty deeply impacted, at least for the peas that were close to the ground, which are the ones that are older. That's the ones we would be harvesting most of right now. The ones higher up are just younger, but we should be able to get these, you know, in a week or two. Go, not too bad. We went from nothing last week to essentially a full basket this week. My wannabe armpit melon is under here taking up a little bit of space, but I'll take it. It's funny, I look at this basket of shelling peas and all I can think of is now we've got some really good date night material. So they have these contraptions that you can use to de-shell your peas, especially when they're juicy like this. I don't know if you can necessarily use those automatic shellers when they're dry, but I have a fondness for shelling peas by hand. It's an activity that I really look forward to. My husband and I sit and chat and shell peas together, and it's a really special time. And I don't want the machine, because I would miss that. I would miss the slowness of this process, and I enjoy it. So we'll be sitting down and having a date night with these probably tonight. Good morning, boys. How are you? My moocher didn't feel good for a little bit. That's why I put some hay in here. Are you feeling better? He is. We've got more birdhouse gourd that volunteered on the lane. Putting on some big gourds. They look beautiful. This area hasn't gotten any rain. So far, so good. Well, guess we'll see how it holds up. Because as far as I know, in our forecast, we are not supposed to get rain in the next 10 days. And we haven't gotten it for probably at least 10 days. So over here, we've done something new. You can kind of start to see how the vision for our lane is coming together, albeit through the grass and the bright sun. Sorry about that. I know that that affects things. Our chicken and dumpling cowpeas are way down there. The entire area is 100 feet long. We are converting this into a raised bed space. Raised beds with a trellis. We're going to be using this sheep and goat panel as our trellis. We've got some kajaris growing back here. We were seeing some damage. I think this was rabbits. So getting them trellised up is going to help that. Lots of flowers on the kajari, and you can see down here, we've got a baby fruit. So these didn't take long to produce. At the moment, I'm just kind of encouraging them towards the trellis, and then they'll attach to it themselves. Down here, this is a honey melon, and so is that one. They're growing, but like I said, we haven't been getting a lot of rain, so I've been having to hand water, and there's nothing like rain, so I hope we get some soon. Good morning. Loofah tunnel is still doing really well. Many of the larger ones have hit max capacity and they are just developing more on the inside and starting to harden up. I did notice that we are getting another flush of fresh loofah. You can see we've got a baby here. You can actually eat these. I've heard of people growing these and harvesting them small like this and kind of treating them like okra. You'd think that they would taste like cucumber. They have definitely more of a green bean flavor, and they're better small like this. I think the one that I tried last year was a little bit bigger. It might have been, I don't really want to pull this one off, but it might have been about this size, and it does not take long for the loofah to really start to develop that like spongy texture. But at this really small size, it tastes like a green bean. I can't say that I would necessarily call it a dupe for okra, but it's what people do. The sun is a little bit higher in the sky than it normally is when we come through here. This is our vertical squash growing experiment. We have some scallop squash growing on a T-post. Last year I grew a bunch of these and I grew them just as a bush and let them go wild, and they did really well in my greenhouse. I noticed last year that this particular variety, this white scallop squash, was really resistant to pests and disease, and I'm noticing that this year too. Now, pruning a squash like this and training it upwards allows for more airflow, so in theory disease should be mitigated just with that, plus the fact that we really haven't gotten a lot of rain. But I have been watering from overhead. There's some squash bees hanging out doing their thing. I think I might leave this one for tomorrow, but we can take this white one down here and this yellow one. I have a lot of people ask me how I prepare the scallop squash to eat. So you can really treat it like a zucchini. It's just a different shape. It's very similar in flavor. It's a lot more buttery and less watery. I feel like the flesh does have some more substance. I like these better than I like zucchini. Most of the time when I go to cook it, I will just chop it up and saute it with whatever I'm making. Let's say I've put ground pork. I can throw some diced up scallop squash in there towards the end of the cooking time for the sausage and then serve that with dinner. You can also slice these into wedges and then put them in an egg wash, like with flour first, then eggs, and then breading, and put them in like the air fryer and make almost like fries with them. They're really good that way. I've done that with eggplant too. That's very good. Most of the things that I make are just kind of a conglomerate though. I'll throw a bunch of things together, whatever I have fresh, whatever makes sense to eat because I've got an abundance of, and it's not usually anything super technical. I just put it together. which is a skill I have learned. It's not always easy just to throw things together and know that they're gonna work. It's a little bit of trial and error. This big old melon is a Ginger's Pride melon. These melons supposedly get really, really big. And I have noticed that we do have some baby melons. We've got one here, and it looks like we may have a bigger one over here. I'm gonna step in the bed, as I've been doing, but see? Got that. So this guy is being allowed to ramble amongst the squash as he pleases, and also ramble over here underneath the okra, which there's a couple okra that we can get today. I did not bring my shears out again. Oh wow, look at all the baby loofah out here. See, there's like an entire huge second flush coming on. Look at that. There's so many. These little loofah that are just now producing, these are the ones that'll probably still be green by the time we get to our first frost, but that will be okay. We can harvest them green and still get a good sponge out of that. I'll be sure to show you that. Over here is where I will be planting some turnips. I haven't gotten to it yet. Really, ideally, I like to wait until we're getting a little bit of rain just to help me saturate the soil. So I may wait on this project a little bit longer. I have been watering the garden with a sprinkler, but it's just not the same. I've built these like little hoops here as a way to keep the birds out. I have some netting that I'm going to throw over this, and I'll also keep my garden kitties out of here. So far they haven't messed with this area, but as soon as they see me digging in here and poking around in here, they're going to do it, I promise. In the green stock, I put in some beans. These are Kalima bush beans, which we love, and you'll notice that we have an issue here. So we saw this issue in the greenhouse. It was probably about a month and a half ago, this puckering of the leaves. And initially, I had thought that it was Roundup overspray. And this genuinely still could be that. I did see a sprayer pull in across the street right about the same time that I saw this. But I saw the shriveling of these leaves the same day that I saw the sprayer, and I don't think that the effect of the spray would take only hours to occur. And also, these beans are the only thing that's affected in this garden. I have some nightshades over there, and we'll go see them in a little bit. Nightshades are very sensitive to Roundup, and those should be affected, and they're not. So I'm gonna say that the people that told me that this might be bean mosaic virus in the greenhouse, you are probably correct. Bean mosaic virus can come in on the seed. This is a different seed packet, but from the same seed company, and these beans may have a virus. I'm not seeing the severe deformities on all of the leaves. It looks like some of the new leaves are coming in relatively normally, and that's something that I will see with Roundup overspray, so that's why it's a little bit confusing to me. Oh, look how bad this one is. Yeah, so we've gotten quite a lot of beans out of what used to be right here, so I'm not super worried about this. I think I'm going to leave this as like a wait and see. Good boy, Jackie. Can we see it? Jack, can we see? Nope, he's going to go eat it. Jackie doing his job. We've got chaos over here, the same kind of chaos that we've been used to seeing. I recently came through here and grabbed up most of what I could see as far as the little yellow cherry tomatoes, so I won't be making a harvest of these today. At least I don't think. There are quite a lot. Maybe I'll have to later. But there's definitely something over here amongst these nightshades that I really want to show you. Number one, that they don't have any Roundup overspray damage. They were the closest to that field. These grapes too, they don't have any damage. And my sprinklers that I did run during the time that the sprayer was there, they didn't reach over here. And so if anything was going to get damaged, it would have been here, and it didn't. So only those beans, it's probably a virus. But I found something super special. We've got some volunteer tomatoes in here. These ones are big. I stuck them in this pot to help keep them up off the ground. Look at how big they are. I am 99% sure that these are Belgian giants that volunteered here, which I am so happy about. Those are my favorite slicers. We haven't had a chance to see them at all this year. And hopefully those ripen within the next couple weeks, because I'm getting antsy. I've been coming through trying to see if I can see more of those larger tomatoes. I can tell that this is the plant. I can tell the difference between the plants. This one is a slicer and this one is a cherry tomato. They're just smaller looking. See this big old leaf? That belongs to that Belgian giant. But I've been looking for more fruit too, so I get an understanding of where it is, but eventually they'll ripen to red and I'll see them. I'm just trying to see them and know where they are early so that when they blush I can get them before something like a bird or a mouse or a rat gets to it. That is basically it for the update on the perennial garden. At this point, the perennial garden just kind of does what it does, collects sun to get ready for winter. The asparagus fronds have put on their little berries, but I haven't noticed any of them turning red yet. That one might be close. It looks like it's got a little tinge of yellow to it. Oh, look, here we go. We've got this frond that's dying off. That's an asparagus berry. They are toxic to eat. Found another one, but I wanted to show you the seed on the inside. It's black and a little bit larger than you might expect. See those? It reminds me a little bit of like morning glory seed, but that's that. So we'll put this over here, right in there. I have seen a couple asparagus volunteers throughout the garden where I have not planted any crowns, and so that's exciting. Exhibit A right here, this is my dill bed. And this here was a volunteer asparagus that grew this year. So that's from seed. There's no crown under here. Well, there is now that seed has produced it, but this is the asparagus that grew from seed that I managed to not kill. And that's awesome. When you grow asparagus from seed instead of crowns, it is several years before you can make your first harvest. So that's just gonna hang out there. I may end up moving that later on if I feel like it gets in my way, but that's kind of what I hope to happen in this garden space, just that food would grow as it does with minimal intervention. I really enjoy growing the types of food that just doesn't need a lot of babysitting. And that's the state of the garden this week. Things are still producing and doing well. It is definitely an August garden and it feels a lot like September. I don't know if it's cooling down where you're at, but please let me know. I'll see you guys again soon.